Okay, so we're here to discuss the problem of mail and package theft. As I said, to learn what we can do to help protect ourselves, to meet representatives of the agencies that have jurisdiction, many right here tonight, to learn how we can help them. We're not here to discuss general service issues, and I know there are those, it's just that nobody here can help you with that, with the possible exception of the folks from Representative Bass's office, and I'm sure if they can, they'll be happy to do so. We're not here to really complain about inaction because, well, these folks are here and they're here to help us. And we're not interested in placing blame on anybody, we're interested in finding a way to work together. Okay, so we all know that Mar Vista's had a pretty high volume of mail and package theft lately. It's a misdemeanor under California law, a felony under US law, and these guys know it probably far better than I do. In some buildings, at least I'm told, this occurs multiple times weekly, and I've seen some video and it's pretty horrific. And many stakeholders have been victims of financial fraud as a result. And honestly, stakeholders are really, really frustrated because this problem keeps growing and growing, and they feel nothing's being done to stop it. And so that's why we're here tonight to talk about that, and as I said before, to foster cooperation. Okay, so here's a picture from Molly Montgomery's building of somebody actually breaking into a mailbox. So yes, it happens. And I didn't really believe it when I heard it because I always grew up being taught that if you mess with anything, let it not be the mail. Yeah. Here's another one. I've redacted some names where a check was actually washed and rewritten. This check, you may have a difficult time telling, was actually written to the DWP. Right? You can, if you look carefully, you can see it right there. But actually, they fish these things out of mailboxes, they bleach the checks and rewrite them. I just had no idea you could do that. Okay.
My name is Adrian Acosta. I'm your senior lead officer for this area. I've been the senior lead officer here for 3 years now. 3 years in November. And it's great seeing such a great and big crowd here. Gene, I'm sure you'll document this in Mar Vista pages on the internet, but Mar Vista leads the way. It always has and it always will, and I'm so proud to always represent you guys. Just by a show of hands, how many people have experienced some form of mail theft or that led to maybe even some form of identity theft? Majority of the room. And my hand is staying up because I'm a victim as well. It has happened to me. I'm not going to take a lot of the time tonight from our distinguished speakers because they're going to talk about the investigation form piece. What I'm going to talk about is prevention. Okay, a lot of these crimes are crimes of opportunity, whether it be faulty locks in the building or whether it be packages that have been left over for a day or two. Obviously, no one's tending to those packages. Mr. Miller over here is one of my constituents that provides great video. He had some issues in one of his buildings, so it may be a matter of getting video in your building to help prevent these crimes. There's some simple things that you can do as a consumer if you're expecting things. You can always make sure that whatever package you're expecting requires a signature. That way it won't be left at your door, or won't be left in a common area. As a neighbor, if you see that your neighbor's package has been sitting there, hey, you know, be a good neighbor, bring it in. We've kind of lost that neighborly attitude a little bit. No one's really watching out for each other. We'll start to watch out for each other, and it'll definitely help. I recently had a package delivered where I required a signature. It wasn't delivered, and it was taken to my local mailboxes, etc. It took me 10 minutes. Yeah, you know what? You get home, last thing you want to do is drive out again, but what is it worth to you? Is it worth the 10 minutes of hassle to save your $400 or $500 package or whatever you might be having? To me, it is. To me, it is. And I'm sure, you know, to Detective Gomez and myself, who are always watching stats, it means a lot to us. You know, so those are just some very simple preventative measures that you can take. Okay, kind of thinking outside the box, and if you kind of look at the calendar here, we're almost to September, so we're getting into the big shipping season, so to speak, with Christmas coming up, Thanksgiving care packages, all that kind of stuff. you want to get your package from point A to B or from point wherever to you. And by just doing some of those simple steps, requiring signatures, if you're an apartment owner or manager, getting some surveillance in whatever area the packages are left over, and getting the, if you have some sort of crimes, getting those videos sent to us, it'd be awesome.
So let me start off with this. How many of you guys are aware of AB 109 Proposition 47 a couple years ago? So basically, in a nutshell, this is what it was. A lot of overcrowding in prisons, and so what they've done, they've made it so certain crimes that used to be felonies are now misdemeanors, and they're kicking people out a lot sooner if it's not something that's violent. So a lot of these property crimes, taking cars, breaking into mailboxes, things like that, people are seeing a lot less time, a lot less jail time, and they're going in and they're going out. So that's the first thing we need to understand. Okay, so when I talk about this uphill battle, that's where it starts. The second thing is, when you're a victim of this crime, it's important that you report it, and here's why. We'll find somebody, right? You have someone like Officer Acosta out here, and maybe it's the middle of the night, and he sees a car, and whatever reason, it draws his attention. And he does the good thing, he goes over, pulls it over, because he wants to investigate a little further, and he finds a guy that's got a really crazy story about why he's in the neighborhood, and the guy might be on parole for burglary, right? So that gives us the legal right to go in and search this car. And now he finds a bunch of things in there with different people's names, which is not the person that we have detained. So if you reported your mail stolen or whatever it was, we can actually look up the different names and it'll come up. So-and-so is a victim of a theft. Oh, well, okay, now we got a guy and we've got stuff from a theft. We can kind of start piecing things together. If you never reported it, we're going to run all these different names, and this person's going to say, oh, I just like to go through trash cans and pick up whatever I can, and now it's not coming up like you're a victim. And so that's the one thing I want to talk about as far as reporting these crimes. I know a lot of times we think, what is it really going to do? It's not that big of a deal. It wasn't anything super valuable. Why report it? That's one of the reasons, okay? So when you guys are victims of theft, you call the police, they show up, they should show up and take a report. I've done a lot towards officer education because some of them might show up and you might have had these conversations with some people and it's frustrating. Some of our officers might show up and say, well, this is actually a federal crime. We only deal with this other type of crime. I don't know if you've ever heard that before. I've heard stories of that myself. So I make sure I go to every roll call, I talk to all the officers and I remind them. We take theft reports, whether it's mail or whether it's somebody's laptop, whatever it is. We're going to take the report, we'll figure it out later. So that's number one. And we're working very diligently to make sure our officers understand it as far as the training issue. So what will happen most of the time? You'll take a report and we'll try to get video. If there's video, great. If there's high definition video, even better, right? So now what we'll do as a detective, I'll get this case, I'll create a crime flyer. And I'll pass it out to the officers, I'll pass it out through the local agencies, Santa Monica, Beverly Hills, Culver City. And we're hoping to find these people committing another act. And if they see that, they go, hey, let me call this detective up. I got this guy for something else, but it looks like the guy on the crime flyer. So now we can connect it, now we can arrest him, now we can file charges. Does that make sense? If there's a car involved, even better, right? Video has a license plate, we can do some follow-up. Here's the unfortunate part. If there's no video involved, there's really no follow-up. Does that make sense? So somebody breaks into the mailboxes, they take everything. There's no witnesses. That's the other thing. If we have a witness, we can go with that information. There's no witness, there's no video, there's really not a whole lot we can do. So we take that report, it gets filed away. The only thing we're hoping at that point is kind of the situation I talked about. Officer Acosta stops somebody, the name pops up, we can connect it with the report, and really, to be honest, that's kind of getting lucky at that point. There's not a whole lot that we can do to investigate that and take it any further. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And I do get a lot of people that get frustrated because they feel like we're not doing enough, but when I try to explain to them, there's not a whole lot we can do at that point. We will look for video in the neighborhood, because maybe there's no video in that building, but they were walking in several different buildings and we might get lucky that way. So we will do that.
Can I interject one thing, Angel? What he's saying though too is, your report's still important. We work on the dots, okay? So if on the corner of Palms and Sawtelle, there's been 5 mail thefts, but still no follow-up, well, patrol's gonna see that and spend a little more time in that area looking specifically for that type of crime. If it's not reported, well, guess what? We're not looking. Okay, so every week, I get a map and I'm responsible for that. I'll go over it with Angel and we'll say, hey, there's burglary activity in that corner. We have 1 lead, whatever it may be. So if it's reported, then it becomes a dot on the map. If it's not reported, then it looks clean. I think, okay, cool. That area doesn't need any attention. Yeah, go ahead.
That's a very important point, and I was going to get to that. If you guys are not reporting crimes, whether it's this or something else, when we look at those maps, we think, wow, we're doing a great job over here. So all these additional resources we have, and right now we have a bunch of crime suppression details that are just specifically, we're looking at crime maps and going, let's put them right here, let's put them right here. So if you have this area that's full of dots, because crimes are being reported, and you have this other area that's completely clean, all our resources are going to go to those dots. So please keep that in mind. It's very important. So when we get those reports, we get those follow-ups, we get the video, we put out those crime flyers. We do get lucky sometimes, and we do have these agencies call us up, or we find them. Our officers are out there, they look at these crime bulletins, they're like, hey, that looks like the car from this theft. They stop them, they arrest them. Here comes the other part of that uphill battle. So now we're trying to file this case with the district attorney. That's a very frustrating ordeal. A lot of times, again, this is not a violent crime, and so they'll say.
So Kenneth and I are here from the office of Congressmember Karen Bass. As Elliot mentioned, this particular meeting is just to focus on the mail theft issue that this community has been having to, suffer through. But in regards to any sort of USPS issue, it is a federal issue which our office does handle. So if there's any issues in regards to service or anything aside from mail theft, you can contact Kenneth and I. We're in the office, and unfortunately we are very well versed in this particular area. It happens every day within our district. It's rampant, in regards to service and theft. And for whatever reason, if you're not able to, file something with the postal inspector, you can always go through our office. We are very happy to assist you with that. And we are just there to help and inform you of what the process is, and also just to keep that situation going. Because sometimes if an issue comes up, there's a resolution, but a few months down the line it may come up again. So you're more than welcome to contact us and say, hey, you helped me out like 6 months ago, but this happened again. Then we can revisit that same issue, and that's what we're here to do. A lot of individuals don't really think that that's something that would require a congressional inquiry, but what Kenneth and I always remind our constituents is that without you contacting us and us being able to track it, there's really no accountability, and there's no way for individuals like Jerry and Lee to know what's happening if they don't get something to be able to track. And that happens all the time. People come and tell us, like, we want to file a complaint. Well, it's a little bit different than that, and so our office is just here just to give more information and to help you find some sort of resolution, and also to connect you to the people that can actually offer that direct assistance. So that's what our role is in this particular situation. So, for example, like Elliot said, he came to the Delray meeting and he said, I have a mail theft issue. What is happening? And then next thing you know, we're here. So that's what we're here to do, to assist you in any way that we can.
I'm Lee. I'm a postal inspector. Just quick background on myself. I've been a postal inspector for 10 years. Before that, I worked for Homeland Security for 4 years. So, postal inspectors, I don't know how many of you know, we're the oldest law enforcement agency in the country.
Could you speak up a little bit, please?
We're the oldest agency in the country, federal law enforcement. No, so we've been around as long as the post office, and that predates the country. Well, even before that.
251 years.
Yeah. We so the postal inspectors, we investigate crime related to the mail, anything related to mail from mail theft to bombs in the mail to whatever, and also to the post office itself if somebody burglarizes or robs a post office. Somebody puts drugs in the post office. Yeah, between me and Jerry, we've worked it all. I don't know. Well, to add to the detective, I just wanted to talk about the actual prosecution side. So how we get involved is two things. Is one, once we receive a complaint and it's actionable, that there's something that we can go on with. So what's different about us is we do not have a black and white unit that patrols the streets. So a lot of our cases actually develop from your complaints to LAPD. We get contacted by LAPD, and if it's a case that we think, it kind of goes both ways. If LAPD thinks that it's worthy of federal prosecution and it reached a certain threshold that the U.S. Attorney's Office is willing to prosecute, we will adopt that case and we'll take it federally. So because of recent changes in state law, cases are being filed misdemeanor. On the federal side, that hasn't really changed. We're still looking at prosecuting them for felonies. The statutes typically, it's like a 5 for possession of that counterfeit key or the arrow key. It's a 10-year statute. Where the possession of U.S. mail, it's a 5-year statute. Doesn't mean they'll get that, but that's what the stat max is. What else is different is that if LAPD pulls somebody over and the guy has mail that doesn't belong to him, all I have to prove on that possession of U.S. mail statute that it's U.S. mail. And that typically means that there's a stamp on it and that it entered the Postal Service in some way. So that makes it a little bit easier, and that's why it makes it, when we get contacted from LAPD, if we adopt the case, we don't need to contact each person with that, well, not immediately. Eventually that person will find out. We'll send them a letter, we received your mail. But that's one big difference between filing the case federally and state. Yes, ma'am.
You have on your website, on the U.S. Postal Service website, a link that says protecting your mail. And it gives you all kinds of, don't leave it overnight. You know, a lot of people, they won't pick up their mail for like 3 days or whatever. And then it has file a complaint.
Mm-hmm.
So the best procedure to do is not file a complaint on your U.S. Postal website and file it locally with LAPD?
No. Well, you can file it with LAPD. You can file it with. I suggest double file it. Like file it with us and file it with LAPD. Yes, ma'am.
I had a similar question. So when I had something stolen, and I actually don't know if it was local or if it was in between Florida and Los Angeles. It could have been any time. So I sent a complaint to the Postmaster General on the website. What happens to that? Does it just go out in, I mean, where does it go? I've never.
So there's several ways actually. It depends on how you filed it. So if you think, so there are two agencies that work for the Postal Service. They're the postal inspectors, and we handle everything related to the mail that isn't stolen by postal. Like if you think it's a postal, if it's a postal employee, because you mentioned that it got stolen in transit,
Seems to.
then that would be a different agency. That's handled by the Office of Inspector General.
I'm Jerry Ramirez, also postal inspector, and Lee and I are on the mail theft prevention team. And this team's only been around about 1.5 years. Our inspector in charge, we both worked mail theft before, and he realized, you know, we can't arrest our way out of this problem. He said we need to try to prevent stuff from happening in the first place. So a couple of things we focus on is changing these locks. That the technology is actually pretty antiquated, and again, it goes back to the days when crooks would even know, hey, you don't touch the mail. You can steal from anybody else, but don't take the mail, because that's, you know, a pretty serious offense. more and more that's becoming not the case, and the big driver is increased meth use here in Southern California specifically. That's the driver of most of these crimes. So, they'll wash checks, they'll steal your parcel and just try to sell it so they can feed their addiction. So that's the big driver here. The keys, again, these guys have figured out how to counterfeit our keys, and it's not very difficult to do. They figured it out again. So we're changing that. We're working with the Postal Service to target those areas that have been hit by these thieves. So the newer keys are again, I can't get into it too much because for security reasons, but know that they are effective in places that we are installing them. And that's why, again, it's important to report it. That way we know where to focus our efforts and where to make those changes. Yes.
Okay, so
It's your knowledge of and your process of present progress on revising or altering this design of mailboxes because of the problem that's developed recently. I'm not sure how long they've been doing this, but the use of gum, stick-em glue, etc. So when somebody puts their mail in, it just gets stuck there, and then the guys come by and they just take their mail right off the top. And the only thing I've noticed recently, which is a temporary fix, is they are taping closed, the post office is taping closed the side that opens and closes and just leaving the slot, hoping that people can just drop it in the slot and that it will get into the box so nobody will be able to steal it at that point. But that's a short-term temporary solution. I'm wondering if there's got to be a redesign to prevent this new method of catching your mail before it drops in and then they come by later and just grab it.
We're actually working with Postal headquarters on a redesign of the collection boxes. We've already, we tested in Palms, so anybody in the Palms area, 90034, we redesigned it so that the door no longer opens. There's a slot with just wide enough to fit your letters in, and it's harder for these guys. Really what they're doing, they're sticking, we call it a fishing device. And it's just essentially a piece of metal or a block of wood that's covered in glue, and they tie a string to the end of it, and they just fish your mail out of the collection boxes. So this redesign is actually helping to cut back on that. Again, the best advice I can say is don't drop anything after the last collection. If the last collection is posted on there, it says 5 p.m., don't drop anything off after 5 p.m. Because that's when these guys are out. They go out at night and try to fish the mail in. Oh,
Talking about are like 20 feet in front of the post office themselves, at the post office.
Yeah.
These are brazen people who
Yeah.
come by and put the glue in there.
And again, a lot of the time these guys are under the influence, so they're not making the smartest decisions. So,
Can I ask Ken's position?
You have a question back? Yes.
Can we just, no, 1 second, Samira. Is that the kind of thing, we reported it to the bank covered the check, but is that the kind of thing that should be reported to either the post office or to the police department?
yes, because if we don't know about it, we don't know that phishing is happening at that location. Always report it, and that's how we can target our efforts. Again, is we know you have a problem, we could get you one of the modified boxes, as soon as they come out. So.
Thank you.
Question back here.
Same as the last speaker, it had checks washed out of one of those drive-up mailboxes at Exposition. And apparently this problem has existed for some time, and what I do not understand, and mine apparently was when they stuck a rod in there with something sticky on the end of it and pulled out the mail. What I do not understand is why those boxes continue to be used, especially given the huge bureaucratic process which you just described. Number one. Number two, why the public isn't warned about this. It seems so simple to put a sign up there rather than wait for your engineers or whoever it is that's going to deal with this. Why is it that those boxes are even being used?
So Postal has tried to pull the boxes, because the fact is a lot of these, maybe not the ones right in front of the post office, but there's some on a corner that may only get 5 or 10 pieces a day. When Postal has tried that, they get a huge pushback from the residents who are used to the convenience of a box on the corner of their house. So that's part of it, is people, and again, we do try to provide information and say, hey, if you're going to use them, don't do it after the last collection, things like that. But again, that's part of the reason is people want those boxes, you know, the convenience out there, so.
Well, you have to make a judgment call there, and maybe it's more important to prevent theft than the convenience of a few neighbors, but at least put a sign up that indicates that there's a real problem. I had my check washed too, fortunately my bank reimbursed me, but that's not really the issue. I don't know why they can't take some, you talk about preventative action, like you did earlier, that seems to be minimal and sort of rather self-evident.
I agree, and that's why we're here. We're trying to spread the message. We're trying to, you know, inform the public, and I brought some mail theft prevention tips, but I agree, we do need to increase our public awareness.
Thank you.
Well, let me address one more point. You've done a lot. You've gone above and beyond as far as your building security goes and state-of-the-art cameras, things we talked about before. If someone wants to get in, they're probably going to find a way in. And it's not just in the areas you secured. Sometimes it's the easiest point of entry, right?
Right.
A lot of times when I'm driving through the alleys on Sawtelle, the fire doors are left open. And because someone's going to the store or they're going to KFC or McDonald's real quick. They just want to leave the door open. Well, I always get out and shut them, you know. Because if you can get in there, you can get anywhere in a building.
Right.
And no matter how secure your front lobby is, where most of the mailboxes are, if you have an open, it's going to make someone maybe take their key next time or go out the front or lock it themselves. Okay, but that's a majority of times, that's how people are gaining entry to your buildings.
Well, that'll get them a 3-day notice fast.
Couple of things. One, prevention is key. It's great. Adrian mentioned neighborhood watch. It's great to have a Gladys Kravitz on your block because they see everything, who belongs there, who doesn't. Lighting, cameras, you know, these guys, this isn't the only area. I lived in Mar Vista for 25 years. I'm now in Playa. This is happening in Westchester, in the Valley, and, you know, everywhere. These guys are roaming our areas because there's opportunity. If you give criminals an opportunity, they're going to take it. So if you see something, say something. And for the inspector, you know, this is rampant. This is rampant. I would suggest a PSA. You know, put something on TV to let these criminals know we are now watching to see and know what you're doing. But if you don't alert people, you know, these meetings are great, but there's 4 million people in Los Angeles.
You know, that's a great point when you bring up, back in his patrol days, Angel was a court-certified gang expert. I used to work street crimes unit where I was a narcotics expert. We know the division pretty well, but you guys know your streets better than we do. You know who belongs and who doesn't. And take your average patrol officer that's working Pacific Division with 3 or 4 years on, that's trying to gather that experience that the two of us have over time. They don't necessarily know who belongs and who doesn't, but you do. And again, the importance, like you just said, of joining a neighborhood watch. Anytime you call in on somebody, you're giving us reasonable suspicion to stop and detain someone. You're doing us a favor, you know? So we have the tools now to go and stop and have a conversation with whomever it may be that you're calling about. We can formulate those opinions because of our training and experience. You have close to 20 years on, I have close to 15. You know, so we can probably talk about it and stop just about anyone in here and formulate the opinion that you might be up to no good. But someone who is of lesser experience can't do that just yet.
So I heard the suggestion